I'm a 21-year-old female. This story took place when I was around 11 years old. I remember this day very clearly because it was the first time that I was ever allowed to walk to school and back by myself. Up until the age of 14 or so, I lived in what we thought was a safe place in Chautauqua County, New York. Everyone knew everyone. If you thought you would get away with something, then be very prepared to have your ear abused by the time you got home. There was this one day though. It was a very cold winter day. School, unfortunately, was still open though, so all the neighborhood kids had to walk through knee-high inches of snow just to get to school. It took me a bit longer to leave the house, as I was used to walking with my older sister, since she knew the route better than I did. I always used to make fun of her for being paranoid and taking a different route every day from school, but after that day, I learned that that was what saved my life. As I was waiting by the door to leave, my mom came up to me and told me that I should ride with her to drop me off because my sister was actually too sick to go to school today. Being a young brat though, I made a big deal about walking there by myself. After all, I was almost 12 years old now, and all my friends' parents let them walk alone. She looked at me for a long time, then told me to go, but make sure I pay extra attention to cars. I had actually almost gotten hit by a car and died when I was 9, so the worry that showed up on her face was very well warranted. Hurriedly, I nodded and headed out the door to go to school. My sister didn't like to dilly-dally, so she was always in a rush to get there early, but seeing as it was just me this time, I thought it would be a good idea to take my sweet time and enjoy the scenery. I would play in the brown slush that was left on the side of the road, and even make these funny-looking snowballs just to see how far I could throw them. Halfway to school, though, I noticed a white van following slowly behind me. Being the playful child I was, if I had not been bending down to make another snowball, I wouldn't have even noticed it slowly creeping up the street. I did, though. I tried to tell myself I was just being stupid, but I continued a lot more hurriedly to school after I saw that. Once I got there, I took a quick glance over my shoulder and saw the white van was still just a few feet behind me. It wasn't until I was finally on school grounds that it drove away as fast as I had ever seen. I thought that would be the end of it, but throughout the day, when I would stare out the window, I would just see the van there. I assumed that it had never really left, just parked in the lot. Many adults would try to convince me years later that it maybe wasn't the same one, but I knew it was. This particular van had a bright yellow smile emoji sticker on it. I couldn't see who was inside through the tinted glass, but I knew they could see me very clearly. It was now the end of the day, and I wasn't ready to go home. It was too late to call my mom to come pick me up. She was at work, and my sister was at home sick. I had to just suck it up and start walking home. I tried to blend in with a group of kids, but most of them were car riders, and the others didn't live anywhere near me. Remembering the wise words my sister had told me, I decided to take another route home. I didn't memorize this route very clearly, but I decided that anything was better than being spotted by that van again. I made it to my main street, but I realized my mistake too late. The route I took led back to the main street where I walked to school. Hidden behind a row of cars was the white van with the smiley emoji sticker. I tried my best to stay calm and walk past it, but once I heard that van door slide open, I started running. I could hear the rush of 2 pairs of heavy footfalls behind me. They were getting closer and closer, so I did what any normal kid would do in this situation. I cut a lot of corners. I cut into someone's backyard until I was directly in sight of my house. I forced myself into the thick snow to make it to the door. My heart was racing, not because I was running, but because I could still hear them right behind me. I made it to the door and banged with all my might until someone answered. My sister looked very confused, but one look at my face, and she immediately pulled me inside and locked the doors. The van was still outside. Truthfully, it stayed there the entire time until my brother got home. My sister and I don't talk about it, but we both knew how close it was to me going missing. I hadn't thought about this incident in years, but one of my hometown friends showed me an article that came out in 2013. Apparently, some men kidnapped and sexually assaulted a girl my age. It wouldn't have scared me so much if it hadn't mentioned that particular white van. Whoever you are that attempted to kidnap me and do God knows what else, I hope we never meet again. Two years ago, I was alone in a huge city and walking by myself. I had gotten very lost and my cell phone was at about 2% battery. I was panicking already, and because of that, I was not paying attention to my surroundings the way I probably should have been. I realized I was really lost at this point. I felt instantly very uncomfortable, that feeling that I was being watched. I looked and saw two men standing by a car. One got inside, but it seemed like they were talking about me. The whole thing just felt very off. The car pulled away and the other guy kept walking on the other side of the street, just a little bit behind me. At the next block, he crossed over to say hi, then asked if I had an extra cigarette. I was holding my pack at the time and had just lit one while quickly looking at my phone for a map before my battery died. I gave him one because I wanted him to just leave me alone. After that, he asked me for a light. I gave him my lighter and he asked right away if I was lost. I said no. I told him I was just waiting for my husband to pick me up, and he was right around the corner having just picked up his brother. Of course, this was a lie. I was actually late to meet a friend who I was meeting from an online mommy group. I had talked to this woman for years online and on FaceTime. The man told me he would wait with me. I said that wasn't necessary. I was walking toward the direction my husband was coming from already. I frantically grabbed my phone and tried to use the Uber app just to get out of there and find my friend. I should have probably done that to begin with, but I had never planned on getting so lost. Anyway, as soon as I did that, my phone died immediately, but not before he saw I had just opened the Uber app. He asked if my husband was an Uber driver or if I was just a lying bitch. I said nothing in response except, "Have a great night," and started walking even faster. He started texting someone and following close behind me. Ahead of us, I saw two young guys. I'm 41 and they were 21 or 22. They seemed to be about my daughter's age. I was very relieved that there was someone else around. I hadn't seen anyone the entire time since I'd gotten this lost, except some homeless woman trying to find cans in the trash and a little kid going past on a bike. I saw the two men unlock a car and start walking toward it. I picked up the pace, then saw the guy that was following me was on his phone. I saw his friend parked only a half block up the street from us, near a boarded-up building. I had no idea where I was in this city, feeling more scared about these men and why one was following me and reporting to his friend in the car. I started to cry. I felt him getting closer and closer, walking even faster to match my pace. He was getting very close to me, almost able to reach me. I heard him say into the phone, "Yeah, there's definitely not a husband. I'm not too concerned. Her phone died too." I knew he was talking about me. I didn't know what to do. So, I ran after those two young guys, yelling out to them, "Babe, hey, babe, I'm right here." They stopped about 10 feet from the car they were getting into. One started to say something like, "Who are you?" I would imagine, but the other one saw my face, and something instantly clicked. He ran toward me and pulled me up into a big hug. "There you are. I can't believe I didn't notice you right behind us. You know, I thought we lost you." Really loudly. He took my hand and pulled me over toward their car. He pulled me into a tight side hug and whispered, "I hope this is okay. You look like you needed help. Is that man bothering you?" All I could do was cry. The man that was following me made a beeline for the car with the other guy in it. They jumped in and sped off right away. The nice young men called the cops for me and gave me a power bank and cord to charge my phone. The guy wouldn't even take it back from me. He said that I should always keep one with me, and I should also start carrying some protection. The cops took a description of the men and the car and asked if I was safe or felt safe. I did, so they left. My phone was charged enough at that point to get an Uber and let my friend know I was still alive. The young men offered me a ride, but had me tell my friend and my husband who I was with. They even showed me their IDs and the car and plate number. On the 10-minute ride, it turned out I was less than 10 city blocks from where I was initially supposed to be. The men were so kind. I kept thanking them and even tried to give them money for helping me. The fake husband one said he just hoped someone would do the same for his sister or his girlfriend if they ever found themselves in the same situation. I laughed a little bit. More like your mom. I'm definitely old enough to be. Sorry you had to fake marry me tonight. He said I was maybe old enough to be his big sister, not his mom, and that my husband was lucky to have such a beautiful wife. They ended up having drinks with me and my friend actually, and their girlfriends came to meet up with us. I told them they had great guys, and thanked them for lending their help to me. We actually all are still friends to this day. I don't even know how to begin this. To be honest, I was only able to puzzle out what happened a few months ago. I guess I'll start from where I believe is the beginning, but I can't assure you this was actually the first time I ever saw him. I'll keep the details pretty vague regarding where this happened so as to not dox myself. I know I have pictures of my face on the internet, but I don't feel comfortable sharing my name or the specific city I lived in at the time. Let's just say it's a European city, very central and cosmopolitan. When I was about 15 years old, I was actually extremely interested in philosophy books. I didn't feel I could talk to my friends about the subject without boring them though. So when this man approached me on the street with a pamphlet about Plato classes, I was pretty excited. He was about 28 to 30 years old, very tall, skinny, those crazy eyes. I remember I was a bit of a smartass and thought that reading two of Plato's most well-known books made me interesting, so we started debating right there in the street. It was a nice conversation actually and lasted about 10 minutes, but it was already getting late, so I decided to leave it at that. The man told me his name at that point, but I honestly cannot remember it. A couple of days later, I met him on the very same street at a totally different time. It was always very crowded, so I wasn't especially spooked about it or anything. I was just getting out of the subway after classes. Mind you, I took this route every day until I graduated high school. I didn't live on that street or anything, but it was where I got out of the subway and then waited for the bus that would take me home. I thought it was a cool coincidence that the philosophy guy was at the subway door. This time, he didn't have any pamphlets. Instead, he had a lollipop in his hand. I know it sounds cliche, but it was so eerie to see a 6-foot guy just sucking this lollipop and staring straight at me. He called out hi, I said hi back. He tried to get a conversation going with me, but I could feel this weird energy in the air, so I decided to cut that conversation short. After that, I'd see him once or twice a week. I just assumed he lived there at first and happened to be going for a walk at the same time I was getting home. I honestly believed this weird guy, twice my age, just happened to find his way to me so many times. That is, until I saw him in my neighborhood. I was having coffee with a friend of mine. She was telling me that she'd met this cool guy while playing volleyball on the beach, when that guy, I shit you not, just appeared out of nowhere. He approached my friend and they talked for a bit. Yes, he was the guy she was just talking about. He seemed mildly surprised that the two of us were friends, but didn't seem to give it much thought, so I didn't either. When he left though, I started feeling really uneasy. My friend thought he was cool though, so I didn't voice any of my concerns. You see, there's this thing about teenage girls that makes them believe they're very mature for their age, so we assumed he had befriended us separately, then found out we were friends. At the time, none of us had social media apart from WhatsApp, so I can't even understand how he managed to insert himself into my friend group. Eventually, my friend left to study abroad and the subject died down. I would see that dude now and then on that same street of my commute, but we would only speak for a few minutes and that was about it. This went on for about 6 months or so. Sometimes he would try to pretend he didn't know who I was, but would still approach me saying that I looked somewhat familiar. Sometimes he would greet me very warmly like old friends. Looking back, I guess he was dealing with some kind of mental health problem. Slowly though, he began getting a lot bolder. One time he asked for my number and tried to grab me. I could feel that something was very wrong, but at the same time, I thought I must be being the weird one since he seemed like such a nice dude. Still, I gave him a fake number. This other time, we went to a church on a school trip, and I saw him just waiting outside talking to all my peers. He played it cool, saying he had seen my face somewhere but was not sure, as if I hadn't been seeing him everywhere almost every week for a year now. I was very stupid at the time though. I never even thought about talking to my parents about this. After all, the guy wasn't violent, it's not like he was mean. In my head, he was just a lonely man who happened to have a strangely similar routine to mine. I started to be real scared though. I'd look behind my back when I was alone at night. I'd avoid all dark streets. I was kind of paranoid, but still, I ignored my gut feeling and shoved it to the back of my mind. After all, as long as I just gave him a few minutes of my day when he called out for me, everything would be fine. When I turned 17, I just suddenly stopped seeing him anywhere. I think this went on for about a year. It was quite a relief, honestly. I could sense that what had happened was bizarre, but I'd explain it away to my friends like it was a funny thing, like it was an inside joke. Eventually, I started attending college, so my everyday route changed quite a bit. I stayed in the same city though. One day, I had to go through that same street once again. I can't remember the exact reason. I just know that I was walking, minding my own business. It was about 9 p.m. at night. I turned around the corner, and there he was. He saw me, smiled, and said he was lost, asked for directions. I swear I felt a primal fear in that moment. I felt like I was truly dealing with an insane person. We had crossed each other's paths for 2 years straight in this exact same place, and here he was acting as if he didn't know who I was or where he was. Something about that fucked with my mind for a while. I just kept walking. I didn't even look at him. I didn't utter a single word. All of a sudden, he just lost his shit. For the first time ever, I saw what he really was. He grabbed my arm and screamed I was the biggest bitch ever. He said he hoped my mom would die of cancer. He said he would kill me. I know I was not alone, as there were quite a lot of people outside still, but no one said anything. He started screaming in my face. I yanked away and started running. I ran and cried. This was the last time I ever saw him, 2 years ago. He's long since stopped talking to my friend, but nobody I ask ever knows who he is. I can't remember his name to go to the police and file a report. It's like my mind tried to erase him. He was a stellar stalker though, because I never understood that's what he was until years after the fact. I'm just glad I ended up safe in the end. This story takes place when I was about 13 years old. I'm 19 now if the details are unclear. I just moved into a small countryside town, into a house that was just beside a huge forest. It was a new neighborhood and we didn't really have very many houses on my street. You could, without a doubt, walk hours into the woods and still be going. Being young and stupid, I'd take my dog on a walk without having my parents with me, or taking anything to protect me. I don't even remember taking a cell phone with me. Don't blame my parents for this because they were reassured by the fact that my dog was really big and people were easily frightened by him, like really easily. My dog was about 7 at the time. I did that often, nothing bad ever happening, and I never met anyone out on those walks either. I really loved doing this because I could just take my mind off everything else that was happening in my life. The moving was rough on me, and to make everything more fun, I was being bullied at school too, so I really needed this time alone. There I was, casually walking on a track that's supposed to be used if you have a motocross or a quad. I heard a noise that I didn't pay too much attention to at first. It was coming from right behind me and started to become steadily louder. When I turned back to see what it was, I could see a person coming straight at me on his motorcycle. I was a 13-year-old girl who was scared of everything that seemed out of the ordinary, so I decided to hop off the track and hide as quickly as I could. Unfortunately for me though, Henry was black and did not blend in with the surroundings very well. After all, everything was green and it was the middle of the day too. I walked pretty fast, but I could tell the bike was getting closer, and I was pretty obviously standing out. I started running until I finally found a rock that was big enough to hide both my dog and I. I heard the motocross come and go. It was impossible for the person to see us now, really. I waited there, telling myself I was just being silly. When I thought I had waited long enough for the person to have gone wherever they were going, I started to walk again, laughing at myself. I froze instantly though, when I heard a loud engine becoming suddenly so close to me. Without hesitation, I started running like hell. When I was able to find a better spot to stop and hide, I did. My dog wasn't in the best shape since he was so old, and I was feeling bad for making him run that much. I could tell that person was still following me and getting closer too. It wasn't exactly a dense forest, so he could follow along the path. He was so much faster than me. I'm a clumsy person, so I trip on just about everything I can. In the middle of while I was running, I met this lovely branch and fell to the ground pretty hard after tripping on it. I was so full of adrenaline though that I hopped up and started running again. The man was now meters from me. He could see me clearly and was also chasing me. There was no doubt in my mind that if he grabbed me, something really bad was about to happen to me. We were approaching a more dense part of the forest though, so at this point the guy had no choice but to stop his bike. This gave me an advantage on him, and I was able to slip away into the forest. I was so glad when I finally saw a house. It was under construction still, so nobody lived in it yet. I did find a hiding spot behind the fence. Minutes later, I saw that motorcycle person come so close to me, but I could tell he didn't see where I had gone. I felt a huge sense of relief when he started to go the wrong direction. I think I hid for about 30 to 40 minutes without even moving to make sure he was really gone this time. I found my way home and told my parents all about it, but they thought I was just being dramatic. In the end, I still never knew who this person was. I did hurt myself by tripping a lot, but it was nothing too serious. I heard years later about weed that was being grown in a part of the woods and cameras. Maybe I'd come too close to their operation and they saw me on those cameras or something. I also went with friends of mine when I was older and found this small abandoned house that was not too far from where this happened.